guys, welcome back to another episode of 5 Drinks Through Midnight. And on the show, we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks, we try to wrap up before midnight. Today, we're headed into the city to go to Singlish to talk to Constellation Craft Beard Specialist Seth Gibbs. But before we do, like and subscribe, leave a comment, really help us push us in the algorithm. All right, let's get started. Seth, you said what you're doing. It's 5 Drinks Through Midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions. Thanks for inviting me out to Singlish. This is a beautiful fucking bar, so thank you so much. This is awesome. How you doing today?
Can't complain.
Excellent. What are we drinking first?
We're gonna start with the Black Manhattan.
Okay.
Manhattans have become really my favorite drink.
Okay.
Didn't used to be the case, but kind of the Black Manhattan changed that for me.
Right.
So,
Awesome.
Burke and Will's, where we were at together, the owner-operator that hired me, Tim, found out I didn't like Manhattans, and that was one of his 2 drinks, and he's like, we're changing that.
You're changing that. All right.
Like, I'm going to hop back there, I'm going to make you a Manhattan, we've earned that, and if you still don't like it after this, I'll leave you alone.
Why, how can you not?
I'd always had it with bad, like...
Okay, bad.
I'm not a big fan of Dolan Rouge.
Yeah, okay.
And he made it with Coquille Dorino.
Okay.
And that changed.
Changed everything for you? All right.
And then it becomes, you know, the right vermouth with the right whiskey. It's different every time. Shows the product knowledge of the person behind the bar. I love that.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Drink 1.
All right, so question 1, it's always the same. It's always a little bit of an origin story. But so, question 1, how'd you get started in the hospitality business?
I kind of grew up in the hospitality business. Started in kitchens, but working in kitchens, money was shit.
Okay.
So it's like, I want to get out from the kitchen and get behind the bar. And in Texas, friend had a catering company, and they're like, you've got the culinary background. We're confident that you can do this. If you want to hop out from behind it, you can help us kind of run the bars. They largely did weddings, and so they kind of cut my teeth there, which I think doing catering bars is great to cut your teeth in. Okay. You can get the volume. You don't have to worry about breaking the mold. You just need to make good, balanced drinks quickly. And so I did that and worked there to save up to move to New York. And so got out here. Stayed in events for a little bit, but once I landed out here, I started doing a lot more consulting as well. And so I've been doing largely started with events, and then kind of blossomed from there. Once I got back behind the bar, started running some restaurants here in town, and then I landed at Burke and Will's on the Upper West Side as AGM, and then eventually ended up taking over while it was still around. And that was really my, as an operator, where I cut my teeth on craft cocktails, where I learned so much. I mean, everybody there was super talented, including Simon here. And it's really where I, rediscovered my love of whiskey at that point, too. Because growing up in the South, already had a love there, and we had a really whiskey and gin heavy menu there. Fast craft cocktails in the front, and then we had a seated only speakeasy upstairs where one person ran the bar, and we had a whiskey list, generally around 250 up there, and it was great. That was my intro to High West. We had a double rye old fashioned on tap that delicious, and prior to working with the brand, no whiskey that I drank more, and now nobody's ever going to get close.
All right. Well, I think that leads up to my follow-up. But then, what made you want to switch over to the brand side?
When I was doing bars and restaurants, everybody that really were more mentors for me had pushed the importance of taking care of your reps. They're your lifeline. They you can use a lot nicer stuff if they're coming in.
Sure.
All of that, and as I got to know more reps, started thinking about it more. I'd had a couple people when I was doing catering and events tell me that I should look into beverage director or brand ambassador, and like one kind of leads to the other.
Yep.
And so that had kind of been a hypothetical end game for me out here. And once I left Burke and Wills, I started looking more and more on the rep side, and ended up landing at Walzay in the West Village. Took over their bar program there, with the hopes that by elevating the bar program, we could get the elusive second Michelin star. I had my spring menu out in its entirety for one day when lockdown hit, and definitely not bitter about that at all. And then once we were in lockdown, on the consulting side, me and Emily were trying to think of, what can we do while we're stuck at home? And we are not people that are made to be stuck at home, especially a one bedroom.
Exactly.
And so we started, and I had some friends asking me about doing bartending classes. I grew up Mormon, so I had a bunch of freshly no longer Mormon people who were looking to learn how to drink. And so finally started doing some bartending classes.
Okay.
And that led to us bringing in our friends who were reps. It's hard to get bottles in front of somebody when they can't sit at the bar.
Sure.
And so we did kind of themed cocktail classes with the brand. Did a bunch of stuff with Kings County, Fort Hamilton, Foursquare Rum, Mr. Black. Really worked as local as we could to really highlight our local brands, but got outside of that, and that was really more the first experience of a more focused brand perspective, and that kind of led to the rep and brand ambassador side.
Okay. Well, and as you mentioned, Emily, so you guys also have a consulting business on the side. So, what did that come out of the pandemic, or was that something that you just couldn't leave behind? Or
it actually started when I was at Burke and Wills.
Okay.
We had a members only. The Speakeasy had a members club up there, and some of the members were also investors. And one night was talking with one of the investors, and he's like, "When are you going to open your own spot?" And I was like, no timeline, but it's one of the things where growing up in it, it's like if you do well enough, you open your own spot, and that's one of the paths you can take. And went home because he was like, if you decide to open it, especially if it's on the West Coast where my family's at now, Emily's family is in the LA area, it's like, I want to be your first investor. And so I went home, told her about it, all excited. She's like, Seth, why would you want to open your own spot? It's like, you're not an owner here, and I barely see you. If you were an owner, I would never see you.
Yeah.
She's like, also, I love you, but you get bored 6 months into a role. And have you ever thought about consulting? I was like, not in that degree. It's like you got a good brain in that noggin there.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about that more in November 2019. We did a pop-up on the Upper West Side near Columbus Circle. Sold it out, all like one night menu. I spent a bunch of time working on that, and we had like 70 people over the course of the night. We were starting to plan our next one, and COVID was on the horizon, and I was like, I don't think we're gonna have the chance to do a second.
Yeah.
And that's where we started talking about pivoting more into education. And it's like, as I got nerdier and deeper into spirits production, I was like, I could do this.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, I think we covered all of the bases. Yeah. That's a fucking awesome origin story. So.
Yeah. And we're kind of coming full circle now, where done the brand rep side.
Yeah.
As I've creeping up on 2 years in this role, have made great friends around the city. Have been able to help some places open or redo their menus, both through the scope of this job, but also through the consulting side, which Emily takes kind of the front of that. But
Okay.
I'm always in the background there, helping out and doing as much as my schedule allows there. And we're going to be helping a friend open up a spot, hopefully end of April out in Crown Heights.
Oh, nice.
That we're really excited about, because it'll be high level cocktails. Get to be nerdy in a way I haven't been able to since pre-lockdown. So,
oh, fuck, that's awesome. Well, cheers. That's question one.
Yeah.
Train's leaving the station. All right. Well, question two, drink two. What are we drinking?
We are drinking a daiquiri.
All right.
When I was running bars and restaurants, this was my bartender test.
Okay.
I only kept the Rose's Lime on the back bar to see if somebody grabbed it. But from what rum somebody chooses, their portion from sweetness to the citrus, it tells me so much about a bartender and a program, just like Manhattan. So, our shaken version of the bartender test.
Excellent. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cannot go wrong.
No.
Oh, that is.
Just enough funk from the rum.
Yep. That is fucking delicious. All right. So question two. It's a little bit more of a psychological get to know each other a little bit better. I always say that people that we just kind of a little bit talked about it, but people who introduce you to new things are great people to have around, be it music or art or, like you said, taste. So like the shoju and everything along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that you are big into music. So if there was one band that was going to belly up to the bar, what band would it be, and what would you serve them?
Oh, that's a good one. So before I went back into hospitality in my early 20s, I played in both touring hardcore band for about a year, and then a couple years with a touring kind of indie punk band. Played the band's Work Tour in 2006 out in Texas, and so punk has a big part of my heart, and I'd say probably over really the entirety of when I've lived in New York, I've got a huge soft spot for the band, the Menzingers.
Okay.
Based out of Philly. They're also one of those bands where it's like you're right at the same age, so they're singing about all the relevant shit. Yeah. And with that, God, what would I? Honestly, I feel like I could serve a cocktail for them, but at the same time, I feel like that's kind of a beer and a shot kind of band at the same time.
All right.
It's like, depending on, if we were here, I would want to serve one of the best whiskeys I've got in my portfolio.
All right.
Break out the Nelson Brothers Honey Cask,
okay.
Or for High West, this year's Blue Rye was just absolutely fantastic. Or if ever there were a time to bring out Midwinter Night's Dram, that would be it. Yeah. And it's I also have a big soft spot for drinking shitty beer with a really nice dram there. We live up in Harlem, and so one of my favorite things to do is to stop by Uptown Bourbon.
Okay.
And with Constellation, we've got Modelo and Corona, Pacifico, and Victoria all in there, and so it's I'll have one of our Mexican lagers, and then I'll have a pour of Midwinter Night's Dram, and that's probably my favorite way to finish out the day, is to stop by Uptown Bourbon.
Okay.
Have Midwinters with a Modelo.
That's nice.
It's just perfect way to end it. Their prices are great. They've got such a great selection, and always meet interesting people there too.
That's awesome. Oh, that's actually a really great cheap beer, an expensive shot. There you go. That's
for the punk kid in my heart. That is all I need in life.
There you go.
I obviously with the cocktail side of my life, I love a really well-made craft cocktail, but I cut my teeth in dive bars, and I've got such a soft spot for those, and we're kind of seeing elevated dive bars coming out here, and that kind of captures my two loves in one there.
So often like that again, traveling and again talking about the change of the cocktail industry. Like again, like we're kind of going in that where like you said, elevated dive bar, but also more sophisticated cocktail kind of situation. What do you prefer?
I really like where the industry is going right now, because we pre-lockdown, like we hit a point where things were getting stuffy and inaccessible. And I love a stuffy, inaccessible cocktail. I love when people get weird. But I love that we brought that back enough to where it's like we're having fun.
Yeah.
It's like we may be experimenting, we may be making, what an average person may find as a weird cocktail, but it's accessible, it's groundbreaking, and people are having fun again. And like that's where I really love where the industry is going. I'm not quite sure how I feel about like the early 2000 cocktails coming back.
Yeah.
Seeing Midori on so many menus has been a little jarring.
Yep.
I was joking with our friend who's opening up the spot in Crown Heights, and he's like, "You weren't kidding, like Midori's everywhere." And I was like, it's only a matter of time before we start seeing modernized versions of the Incredible Hulk shot. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. And it's like, oh, but we are. You know it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. So after that, then too, where do you like this is a beautiful bar, but where do you like to drink in the city? I mean, being Harlem-based, like that's a hike and a half to get like.
Thankfully, we're right next to the express line, so
okay.
I can get down into the city pretty quickly. Depends what I'm looking for on the day. I like to go places that don't feel like I'm going to work.
Okay.
Where it's, Singlish is one of those. Visiting the crew at Milady's is another one of those, where it's, speaking of bars that are cutting edge and having fun, like they do that great, but Takuma over at Martini's, love visiting them. The Hawksmoor team has one of the best bar programs for a restaurant in this city, so never have to twist my arm to go there. If we're going out to Brooklyn, Clover Club, Travel Bar, Baby Jane does a really great job there. Getting out into like Queens area, always love visiting Dutch Kills over there.
Yep. Have you been to Debbie's yet?
No, I need to, but the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and later in the day open, haven't got there yet. It's on the top of the list right now.
Dutch Kills is one of my favorite places.
Yeah, I love that, and that's one of those bars where it's like, doesn't matter when I go there, I run into a friend.
Yeah.
Whether it's a bartender who happens to be off, whether it's another brand rep that I haven't seen for a while, and I've got a soft spot for places like that. Goodnight Sunny's another one of those where it doesn't matter when I come through there, what time of day, I run into a friend there, and I love that about it. Yeah. And then they've got crushable cocktails on top of that.
All right.
So
question 3, drink 3. What are we drinking?
We are drinking Naked and Famous.
All right, excellent.
Cheers. This is one of my favorite templates to do riffs off of, and so thinking on going from bartender tests to drinks that I love the build on. This is towards the top of it, especially when I was still doing bars. If I got the make me something I haven't had before, this is what I went for almost every time, because it if they're asking that, they haven't had it. And I love it. It's approachable. It's a little different.
Yep. What's in it? Like, again, because I don't like.
So mezcal, lime, Aperol, and chartreuse.
Awesome. Cheers.
So, cheers.
Question 3. We call this our talking shit segment because we're 3 drinks in. But being our first episode of 2024, so what are your ins and outs of the spirits industry of 2024?
I think I would start with kind of the ridiculousness on the espresso martinis.
Okay.
Granted, I lead with saying I have not had the Parmesan cheese on the espresso martini. I would try it, but I think it's a little much.
Yeah.
And as somebody who has done way too much on most of my menus, restraint is not something I've learned until the last year on that. I get it, but that one just reads as a little too much for me. Outside of that, I feel like that's one of the big ones. A lot of the TikTok trends.
Okay.
And, you know, I think we're spoiled here in New York where we have so many amazing bartenders who can take those TikTok trends and make them like the best possible version of it.
Sure.
And I know I've had some amazing versions of these little TikTok trends, but they do drive me just a little crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
Also, barely on TikTok, so like it comes up in my periphery, and then it's just like, what is this? I feel like Imbibe and some of those, I end up usually Emily. It's on my radar because of Emily, and then I see it on Imbibe, and then it's like, oh, it's like it's a thing.
Sure.
That's probably one of my biggest ones. Not necessarily a talking shit form, but this year's Dry January has been more of a thing than I think it's ever been.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good thing. Learning how to drink in moderation is
always a good thing
for all of us, and allowing places to be a welcoming space to anybody. All of my programs have always had a strong NA low ABV program there because I don't want somebody to feel like the only way to have drinks with their friend they're gonna have a Coke. Right. And granted, I have put Coke in a fancy glass to make them feel a little more welcome, so they're not just like drinking out of a can or something, but I think being able to have something that has had thought and care put into it and be able to sit and have drinks with your friend and not have them even really have the thought of, oh, this person's not having alcohol and joining us in this. It's like they have something. It looks like a cocktail. It drinks like a cocktail. I don't really need to know what they're drinking.
Right. There's thought and process put into
but
it.
It's good enough that I want a sip of it.
Yeah.
They're a pain in the ass to make.
Yeah.
But there is purpose. Really, really great purpose on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip that around on you, though. Is there anything that you specifically...
So I think NA cocktails are definitely a thing of 2024. And I'm all for it because, again... there is a great store down in the Phi Dot called Spirited Away. They are absolutely like. I'm not saying whiskey. Like the whiskey is there. It's a little weird, but they are some really great like non-alcoholic amaros and
the NA has come a long ways.
So
it used to be everything that I tried lacked body.
Yeah.
Like you would get close on the flavor. I would make something with it, and it's like. This is good, but it's super thin, and it's like, okay, well, the syrup needs like Arabic gum in there to build some body, or we need to use some like verjus or something like that to just get some more body, acidity, all of that. And now like that is less of a barrier. The creation of it is less of a barrier, and really, like if you don't have the program that's going to be creating things in-house to the degree that a lot of spots do, you can lean on so many different things, and you've got something to recreate some classics in there. It's like that is great. Yeah. I love that. And it's like, as we've been talking about, like bringing fun back, allowing people to have a space and join friends that are sober or just they're not drinking for whatever reason. They don't need a reason, but they can join their friends and they can have fun, and it's not reading as like they're not drinking. That is great. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a definite plus for 2024 because again, I think there's so many cocktails out there that you can get away with a lot of stuff that, I mean, like the Troublemaker, again, it's a big froofy drink, just minus the gin, it's still an amazing drink. The breakfast is like Gordon breakfast and all those.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a good Bloody Mary like substitute. And again, I mean, Midwest
But
kids.
the flip of that is also, you know, with High West being based in Utah, and having spent some significant time in my life out there, I'm pretty aware of the weird liquor laws there. I haven't lived there in long enough that I'm not as aware of them as I should be, but when I look at the specs for any drink at the saloon or the refectory, they have very unusual specs, and it comes from Utah.
Law.
But one of the things that they really lean on to add dimension to the cocktails is non-alcoholic, because you're capped at how much liquor you can have in there, but you can bring in some of these really great NA spirits there and bring in a little bit extra complexity. And one of the recent minis that me and Emily did here in the city was the first time that I took that and ran with it, and I was looking at using Rockies.
Okay.
And the liquor order didn't come in, and so I was looking at the back bar. We were tasting ownership on it, and I was like, okay, what do I have that can bring in something similar? And it was like, we're gonna go with, we've got some seedlit back there. Let's go with that, and just put exact same specs, threw a little bit of seedlit garden in there, gin, blood orange, rosemary simple, a little bit of the seedlit garden, shake strain, topped with some soda. Dynamic.
Yeah.
And it brought an unexpected element, because I knew how Rockies was going to work in there, and then I took a sip and was like, actually this might be better than the initial one. It's like sub by desperation here, but this might actually be better. And that's one of the things I love with creating cocktails, where it's like, you think you've got the finished drink, and Emily kills me on that where I've had, like, one of the parts of our programs and my programs that I've had is making falernum in-house. Like, I had like a base recipe that I had been using, and she just made this little small tweak to it, and I was like, fuck, I thought this was finished, and you just perfected it.
Yeah.
This cannot be improved upon. And so many times where it's like, I've had this recipe that it's like something I've leaned on, I know I can use, and then she's just made these little tiny tweaks, and it's like, oh, it's not finished. Thank you for finishing it. Not mad at all that you just took this thing that I've used so many times, and now it is so much more dynamic. Thank you for your palate.
Well, cheers. That's
Cheers.
question 4. So question 4, drink 4. What are we drinking?
We are drinking a Scotchy espresso martini.
All right, excellent. Cheers.
Cheers. So one of my team trips, my flight was delayed. Landed, and my teammates had a High West Campfire espresso martini waiting for me, which somehow I had never done, and I've been stuck on it since.
Excellent.
So if I'm doing an espresso martini and Campfire is at that bar, it's in my glass.
There we go.
Awesome. Little pick me up on drink 4 here.
All right, so question 4 then. You rep so many brands. What is your go-to pour?
It's like, with so many brands, it's like one lucky where I can stand behind all of them. And if I'm doing like a trade show with High West or doing a trade show with Nelson's Green Brier, I get that every single time, and it's like, is there a favorite? Yes, but it's kind of like if somebody asks if you've got a favorite kid. It's like, you've got one, but you don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
I've got a whiskey for whatever day that I've had here, and so for Nelson's Green Brier, if I want something easily sippable and price point isn't crazy, I go for Green Brier or the Classic.
Okay.
It does the job for me. If I want to sip neat, it also does the job for me. And then if I want something that's a little more sip and savor, I've got the Reserve. We've got the new Rye, which is just dynamic and delicious and perfect entry point for a bourbon drinker into the rye world. And then for High West, it's like I've got so many delicious SKUs there, and it's like, what kind of day did I have? What do I want?
Okay.
And then we go into cooperative. We go into Casa Noble. Casa Noble, like my go-to is probably the Repo, but all four, like I've got something for everything. And so like it is really best case scenario on the like a broad portfolio like I've got with Constellation is you've got a bottle for every occasion. It's like High West this year, new bottles. Favorites were probably the High Country American Single Malt. This year's was what I wanted it to be when I bribed a family friend to get a bottle for me, and took 3-4 months to get that to me from the first year release, and that bottle was not what I wanted it to be, but this year's was what I was hoping that would be, and the next release, we've got that finished in port and sherry barrels, and I'm so excited for that. This year's Boo Rye was maybe the best Boo Rye I've had going back to like 2014, so there's only a couple releases on that I haven't had. This year's Midwinter Night's Dram was, for me, probably one of the best since maybe Act 4 or Act 5. This year's Prisoner's Share, which I tried for the first time last night, was exactly what I wanted from it. And then this year we released the Cask Strength Bourbon with the cask finishes, and that cask strength from High West is something I've wanted for about 10 years now, and being able to rep them when that came out was just best case scenario, and then the cask finishes on it are just so delicious and dynamic. Only one I haven't gotten to try, at least that's available in New York, is the Barbados rum, and I can't wait for that, because largely Foursquare finish on that, and love all things Foursquare. And I know the production team is really excited for that one, because like getting the Barbados funk to translate is not easy. But the Cabernet finish on that cask strength bourbon was just one of the most delightful finishes for me, and bottles where usually like it's too heavy on the tannins, it's a little more dry than I want, and I took a sip and was like, oh, this is so unexpected and delicious. And then for the Nelson's Green Brier side, like the rye is probably, at least right now, my current favorite. Just absolutely delightful, quite fruity. It's really what I love in a rye.
I'm walking here. Up yours, you son of a bitch. You don't talk me that way. Get up.
I don't like when they get too grassy and vegetal. I love when you get some of those stone fruit notes in there. And the Nelson Brothers rye is exactly where I like it. But on the Nelson Brothers line, like, everything is great. The cask finishes are wonderful. The honey, look forward to the honey every year. Copper and Kings, you know, we've got a wonderful core with the American Brandy, Apple Brandy, Butchertown, cask strength American Brandy there. And then you get out to the distillery and they do the single barrels so wonderfully. Like their unique cask finishes. I have this, I think it's like a chocolate imperial stout finish from a couple years ago that a friend bought multiple cases on a clearance buyout, and he's been sending them to people to introduce, and he's like, I have a bottle that I want you to try. It is maybe my favorite, and it's Sierra Nevada, and I opened it up and was like, I don't know how the flavors developed in here, but this is delicious. It's like a Christmas old fashioned with like notes of allspice, and I don't know where the beer came in on here, but it did wonderful things. And then Casa Noble, the Reposado is wonderful. Marquez de Casa Noble extra añejo blend is surprises me every time I drink it. And then Mi Campo is just wonderful for pumping out volume. It's like so dangerously drinkable, and I wish it had existed when I was running programs, because the first program I ran in the city was up near Columbia. I had to run things cheap, to the point that I had 2 well tequilas because I had a frozen machine, and the tequila that I was using in there was so bad that I would not let college kids shoot it. So I had a secondary well because that was drinkable for shooting. And if Mi Campo had existed at that point, I wouldn't have had to have 2 wells.
There you go.
And exists in that price point, delicious, and like I'm lucky in the point that I love and stand behind all of that. You know, I miss having real McCoy in my portfolio. Having a delicious rum out of Foursquare was wonderful. But you know, now they're over at PM Spirits here in New York, and they're in good hands. So and like their team is great there. So
Well, there we go. So I guess it just doesn't matter. Any day, depending on what's in your hand, is.
If I was to choose between, on the point, if I was to choose favorite bottles for each brand right now, I would say High West. We will go with High Country Single Malt. Nelson's, I will say, current favorite, maybe the cognac finish on the Nelson Brothers line. If we're going not available everywhere, can't go wrong with the honey cask.
Yep.
Just so incredibly good. Going Casa Noble, my go-to there is the Reposado. Like, it's dynamic to sip. Price point works for cocktails, holds up in cocktails, and it surprises me how it works in cocktails every time. And Mi Campo, the Blanco is just so crushable for price-friendly, like, well tequila, premium well tequila. And then Copper and Kings, I would say, used to be readily available, now more distillery only. My favorite from them is Floodwall, which was cast strength apple brandy, finished in, if I remember correctly, port and sherry barrels. I have enjoyed it at home, but it has not been in the portfolio while I've repped them, so if I'm wrong on that, apologies to Brandon. But I would say those are probably my favorites out of those.
All right.
If I was gonna sub out Floodwall, I'd probably go with Butchertown.
All right.
Cast strength brandy, can't go wrong.
Perfect. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's a great question 4. Question 5, drink 5. What are we drinking?
We are drinking some whiskey neat here.
Excellent.
I brought this as thinking of what I wanted to finish with. This has been one of the most pleasant surprises for me out of High West, and I'm a little stuck on it right now. So, cast strength bourbon, different mash bill from the like regular bourbon, and then finished in cab barrels.
Ooh, very nice.
I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, where like wine finishes for me can be a little finicky. You're depending on tannins, you're like how it's going to affect whether it's dry, off dry, a little sweet there. And this checked every box that I wasn't expecting. The tannins aren't too heavy. You get a little bit of nice sweetness. You get some nice jammy fruit in there, and it complements that high proof bourbon. Just sitting at 50, so not too high, but after helping local distilleries and tasting straight from the cask, if it's under 50, it's a little thin for me these
Nice.
days. So it checks every box on what I want, and we're about to release it here in New York too, which is like right on the edge here. So
Perfect.
try something that
Again,
not many people here in New York have had the chance for yet.
like I said, people that introduce you to new stuff, they're the best people in the world. So I love it. So cheers.
Cheers. So we did 3 cask finishes on this nationally. Most states did them as single barrels. With New York, we don't have space for 56 cases, so we did them as limited time offerings, starting with the cast strength bourbon. Then we're going to the cab, which is about to release. Then we're following that with a Chardonnay finish, which is really interesting. Get some like wonderful butteriness on that, and then we're finishing out this year's run with Barbados rum finish, which is largely Foursquare exceptional cask, and I expect that to be exceptional.
Nice.
So cheers. Just absolutely wonderful.
That is fucking delicious. Mm.
We had a couple, what we've been calling VIP barrels, and depending state to state, how many they get changes. New York has historically gotten the most of anything, so we got 4 of those. Ordiage cognac, regular cognac, PX sherry with orange peel, and then Armagnac. And the PX sherry with the orange peel was so incredibly good.
That is.
And then when I had the chance to see what we were getting for those, and I saw the Armagnac, I squealed a little bit. That was a finish that I knew we had done. I had never seen it, and with my background, I had really wanted to try that.
Nice.
So, with the new line from High West on this, really best case scenario, and at least as far as I have heard, we'll start each year with cask strength bourbon, and then the cask finishes will change year to year.
Okay.
So once we cross March, I will should start finding out what we're doing there, and each year the cask finishes should change.
Okay.
Granted, if there is an incredibly popular one, we may revisit it, but it's a chance to showcase how different barrels express on the bourbon, and I love where our kind of weird little unique single barrel program is going here with High West, and having it sit on cask strength bourbon is just perfect.
Awesome. Well, all right. Well, I mean, leads us right into question 5. So question 5 comes down to the flip of the Whiskey Wednesday coin. You can flip it, you can spin it, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to answer. The coin will give us the answer, but please feel free to answer if you want to answer.
We're gonna do a little spin.
All right. So question 5. Is it dry January?
Let's see.
I think it says fuck no. All right. Cheers.
Cheers with some cask strength bourbon.
Well, that's 5 drinks down, 5 questions answered. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you so much. Cheers to you. And until we can.
Hold up.
Oh, look at you just slamming at that one. See, it's the difference between someone who has it regularly and someone who Cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
And hopefully we get to drink more together in 2024.
Oh, absolutely. So. We, as we've been talking about favorite places in the city, I'll have to let you know when I'm stopping by.
Please.
And we'll have some drams.
Yeah, not a hard person to find. So, but yeah, cheers.